You've been trying to swim against something you can't see. Not a person, not a situation, something quieter, something deeper, the invisible current of life itself. And that's why you're not just tired. You're exhausted. This exhaustion doesn't come from doing too much in one day. It comes from doing battle with time, with timing, with the way life insists on unfolding in its own rhythm. You push, you plan, you calculate, you hold your breath waiting for things to finally click into place. And when they don't, you assume you need to push harder. But the harder you push, the heavier everything feels. Buddhist teachings begin with a truth most people don't want to hear. Life does not respond well to force, not because you are weak, but because life has never been something meant to be controlled. You were taught that control equals safety, that effort equals worth, that if you stop pushing, everything will fall apart. So you grip tighter. Your jaw tightens without you noticing. Your shoulders never fully relax. Your breathing becomes shallow, rushed, functional. Even rest feels unearned, uncomfortable. When someone asks how you're doing, you say, "Fine." But inside, something feels off, heavy, like you're carrying a weight you can't put down. That weight has a name. In Buddhism, it's called suffering born of resistance. Not suffering because something is wrong with you. Suffering because you're fighting what isn't meant to be fought. Your body knows this before your mind does. It knows in the sleepless nights where your thoughts won't slow down. It knows in the constant feeling that you should be further ahead by now. It knows in the quiet panic that shows up when nothing seems to be happening. You keep looking at your life and seeing empty soil. No visible results. No proof that your effort is working. And that's when doubt creeps in. Maybe I waited too long. Maybe I missed my chance. Maybe something is wrong with me. But what if nothing is wrong? There's an old story often shared in Buddhist teachings about bamboo. When bamboo is planted, nothing appears for years. You water the soil. You tend the ground. You wait. 1 year passes. Nothing. 2 years. Nothing. 3, 4, 5. Most people would give up. They'd assume the seed failed, that the effort was wasted. But in the 5th year, bamboo explodes upward, growing taller in weeks than most trees grow in decades. What you couldn't see was the root system, the underground preparation, the silent strengthening that made sudden growth possible. Without those invisible years, the bamboo would collapse under its own height. This is how life works. Impermanence doesn't mean randomness. It means everything unfolds when conditions are ready. And here's the part no one tells you. Trying to rush that process doesn't make it faster. It only makes it painful. You've been measuring your growth by someone else's timeline, comparing your roots to someone else's flowers, forgetting that what looks like stillness is often preparation. When you force outcomes, you're not operating from wisdom. You're operating from fear. Fear that if it doesn't happen now, it never will. Fear that your worth depends on speed. Fear that slowing down means falling behind. But Buddhism draws a powerful distinction. There is right effort and there is desperate effort. Right effort feels grounded even when it's challenging. Desperate effort feels frantic, heavy, exhausting. One aligns you with life, the other pits you against it. Your nervous system wasn't designed to live in constant urgency. It wasn't meant to be treated like a machine that never powers down. When you ignore exhaustion and keep pushing, you don't become stronger. You become fragmented. Joy fades, clarity dulls. The inner voice that once guided you grows quieter, not because it's gone, but because it's being drowned out by noise. The Buddha once said, "Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment." This isn't a rejection of goals or dreams. It's an invitation to stop torturing yourself with timelines that don't exist anywhere except your mind. Right now, in this moment, are you actually in danger? Or are you suffering because reality isn't matching the story you think it should? The present moment is rarely unbearable. It's the interpretation of it that hurts. Your mind creates urgency where none exists, turns uncertainty into threat, tells you that if you don't arrive soon, you'll fail. But seeds don't panic underground. They don't compare themselves. They don't bloom early to prove anything. They wait, not because they're passive, but because timing is intelligent. And so is your life. You're not late. You're not broken. You're not failing. You're ripening. And once you understand that, everything begins to soften. But patience isn't passivity. And waiting doesn't mean doing nothing. That distinction changes everything. There's a quiet tension that follows you, even in moments that should feel peaceful. A sense that something should be happening right now, that you should be further ahead, that time is slipping through your fingers while you stand still. This feeling isn't loud like panic. It's subtle, persistent, a low hum of urgency that never fully shuts off. Buddhism calls this restlessness not a flaw, not a weakness, but a natural function of an untrained mind. The mind was built to scan, to anticipate, to prepare. In ancient times, this kept humans alive. Today, that same mechanism turns waiting into danger, stillness into failure, pauses into proof that something is wrong. So even when nothing bad is happening, your body stays braced, your breath shallow, your thoughts racing ahead, demanding certainty before it's possible. The mind doesn't know how to wait. It only knows how to solve. And when there's nothing to fix, it invents problems. You call it anxiety. But beneath it is something deeper, misalignment between where you are and where your mind thinks you should be. The Buddha described this as dukkha, not pain itself, but the subtle unsatisfactoriness of arguing with reality. It's the gap between this is happening and this shouldn't be happening, and the mind hates that gap. There's a story of a young monk who asked the Buddha, "When will I be enlightened?" The Buddha didn't answer with philosophy. He pointed to a tree nearby. The monk was confused. The Buddha asked, "Does the tree ask when it will be complete?" Rain comes, sun comes, winter comes. The tree responds. It doesn't rush. It doesn't doubt itself. Your life works the same way. But the restless mind doesn't trust this. It believes if it stops pushing, everything will collapse. So it stays alert, hypervigilant, exhausted. This is why peace feels unfamiliar, why silence feels uncomfortable, why doing nothing feels like failure. But here's what the Buddha understood deeply. Your suffering isn't coming from what's happening. It's coming from the story you're telling about what's happening. Right now, in this exact moment, are you safe? Breathing? Alive? Most likely, yes. The suffering arrives when the mind jumps ahead. What if this never works? What if I'm wasting time? What if everyone else is ahead? These thoughts feel urgent because your nervous system believes they are threats. But they aren't truths. They're survival reflexes misfiring in a world that no longer requires constant alarm. The difference between anxiety and intuition becomes crucial here. Anxiety shouts. It demands immediate action. It speaks in catastrophe and deadlines. Intuition whispers. It doesn't rush you. It doesn't scare you. It feels calm, even when it asks you to move. The body knows the difference. Anxiety contracts you. Intuition opens you. When the mind is restless, intuition goes quiet. Not because it's gone, but because it can't be heard through the noise. Mindfulness isn't about silencing thoughts. It's about seeing them clearly, noticing, here is the story that I'm behind. Here is the urge to force. Here is fear wearing the mask of urgency. When you see a thought instead of becoming it, something shifts. The thought loses authority. It becomes weather, not law. There was a time when restlessness ruled my mornings. I would wake up already tense, already late, already failing, before the day had even begun. One morning, instead of rushing, I sat still. I felt my heartbeat. I noticed my breath. And I asked a simple question. Is anything wrong right now? Nothing was. The suffering lived entirely in imagination. That moment didn't erase anxiety forever, but it taught me something powerful. Presence dissolves false urgency. One breath at a time. The mind will keep creating timelines. That's its habit. But you don't have to obey every thought just because it sounds convincing. You are not behind. You are not late. You are where your conditions have brought you. Rest isn't something you earn after finishing life. Rest is what allows you to see life clearly enough to move wisely. And when you stop fighting the moment, something unexpected happens. Space opens. In that space, understanding begins to grow. And what grows next might surprise you. Because once restlessness softens, you're finally able to see a deeper truth. Nothing you're clinging to was ever meant to stay the same. And that realization, uncomfortable as it may be, is the doorway to freedom. There is a quiet grief living inside most people. Not always loud, not always obvious, but present. It shows up when something ends and you don't know how to explain why it hurts so much. A relationship, a version of yourself, a dream that once felt certain. You tell yourself you should be over it by now, that you should be stronger, that others move on faster. But Buddhism begins with a truth most people spend their lives resisting. Everything changes. Not eventually, not as an exception. Always. Impermanence isn't a philosophical idea. It's the basic condition of being alive. Bodies age. Feelings shift. People grow, drift, leave. Even identities dissolve quietly, often without your permission. What hurts isn't the change itself. What hurts is the way we cling to what was never meant to stay. The Buddha called this clinging upadana, the tight grasp around people, moments, versions of life that feel safe. We don't cling because we're foolish. We cling because attachment once protected us. Because stability feels like survival. But here's the paradox. The tighter you hold, the more pain you create. There's an old story about a teacher who cherished a simple clay cup. One day, a student asked, "What will you do when that cup breaks?" The teacher smiled and said, "It's already broken, not because it was cracked, but because its nature was to change, to return to earth, to end." Because the teacher understood this, he could enjoy the cup fully. No denial, no fear, no future grief. This is the wisdom of impermanence. When you accept that things will change, you stop trying to freeze life. You stop exhausting yourself maintaining what cannot be maintained. And something surprising happens. You become more present. You stop loving in advance of loss. You stop bracing for endings. You start meeting life as it is, while it's here. The Buddha described 3 marks of existence: impermanence, suffering born of clinging, and non-self. This third truth is the most unsettling and the most liberating. There is no fixed, permanent you to protect. You are not a solid object moving through time. You are a process, a flow of experiences, thoughts, sensations, causes, and conditions constantly changing. The self you were 10 years ago no longer exists. The self you'll be in 10 years hasn't arrived. Trying to preserve an identity is like trying to hold water in your fists. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it escapes. But if you open your hands, the water rests there for a moment. Long enough to feel it. Long enough to appreciate it. This is what letting go actually looks like. Not abandonment, not cold detachment, but open hands instead of clenched fists. When you understand this, change stops feeling like punishment. Loss stops feeling personal. Endings stop meaning failure. They become movement. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What conditions led here? And how do I respond wisely?" This shift changes everything. You're no longer at war with reality. You're in conversation with it. Even your pain becomes informative. Even your heartbreak teaches. Impermanence also carries a quiet comfort most people miss. Your suffering won't last either. Whatever you're struggling with right now, this heaviness, this confusion, this ache, too will change. Nothing is permanent. Not the joy, not the pain, not the uncertainty. So when you notice yourself clinging to a person, to a moment, to a version of life that's slipping away, pause. Notice the tension in your body, the tightening in your chest, the fear beneath the grip, and gently remind yourself, this is changing whether I resist or not. Letting go doesn't make change happen. It simply stops adding suffering to it. The Buddha said, when one sees impermanence clearly, one turns away from suffering, not from life, from suffering, because suffering is not built into change. It's built into resistance. When you stop fighting the truth of impermanence, something loosens inside you. Breath deepens. Shoulders soften. The constant background fear begins to fade. You begin to trust the movement of life instead of fearing it. But understanding impermanence is only the beginning. The real practice begins when life doesn't match your expectations, when reality pushes back. And that brings us to something crucial, the difference between resistance and flow. Because how you meet what's happening determines whether you suffer or grow. There's a quiet moment when you realize you're tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. Not physically, existentially. This kind of exhaustion comes from arguing with what is. You replay conversations in your head. You imagine different outcomes. You think, if only this had gone differently, if only they had changed, if only I had known sooner. This inner resistance feels productive, like you're solving something. But it isn't. It's just tension repeating itself. Buddhism makes a radical claim. Pain is unavoidable. Suffering is optional. Pain is what happens. Loss, disappointment, uncertainty. Suffering is what happens when the mind says, "This should not be happening." That sentence, quiet, automatic, creates more pain than the event itself. You don't suffer because things change. You suffer because you expected them not to. Resistance doesn't stop reality. It only hardens you against it. Think about water flowing around a rock. The rock resists. The water moves. Over time, the water shapes the rock. Not by force, but by persistence. Life moves the same way. When you resist, you become rigid. When you accept, you become responsive. Acceptance is often misunderstood. It isn't approval. It isn't surrendering your values. It isn't giving up. Acceptance is simply seeing clearly what is already true. The moment you stop saying, "This shouldn't be happening," your nervous system shifts. Muscles release. Breathing deepens. The mind becomes quieter, not empty, but less combative. From that place, wiser action becomes possible. The Buddha taught that clinging to expectations is a subtle form of control. We plan not because planning is wrong, but because certainty feels safe. So when life breaks the plan, the mind panics. But here's the truth. You were never in control to begin with. Control is an illusion the mind creates to manage fear. When you see this clearly, something inside you relaxes. Not because life becomes predictable, but because you stop demanding that it be. There is strength in flexibility. Consider how trees survive storms. The rigid ones snap. The flexible ones bend. Acceptance doesn't weaken you. It makes you adaptable. You still act. You still choose. But you stop wasting energy on wishing reality were different. There's a practice in Buddhism called right seeing. It's the ability to see situations without layering stories onto them. This happened. Not, this ruined everything. They left. Not, I'll never be whole again. This didn't work. Not, I'm a failure. The facts are neutral. The suffering lives in interpretation. When you drop the story, you meet the moment as it is, raw, imperfect, workable. And here's something most people miss. Acceptance often feels like relief before it feels like clarity. You may not immediately know what to do next, but the inner struggle softens. And in that space, something important appears. Choice. Resistance reacts. Acceptance responds. Reaction is automatic. Response is conscious. When you stop fighting reality, you reclaim energy. Energy that was trapped in frustration, resentment, and fear. That energy becomes presence. And presence becomes wisdom. This is where life starts to feel less heavy. You're no longer carrying the extra weight of how things should be. You're dealing only with how things are. And that difference is enormous. Acceptance doesn't mean the end of effort. It means the end of unnecessary struggle. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What is being asked of me now?" This question changes everything, because life isn't punishing you. It's responding to conditions, and you are one of those conditions. The moment you stop resisting, growth begins. Not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily. Yet there's still one last layer that keeps people stuck even after they understand acceptance. A deeper habit, a quiet enemy disguised as protection, attachment to identity, and that is where real freedom waits. There is a version of you that you've been protecting for a long time, an image, a role, a story. You may not even realize how tightly you're holding it. I'm the strong one. I'm the responsible one. I'm the one who always figures things out. I'm the one who failed. I'm the one who doesn't get lucky. These identities feel personal, but they are not you. In Buddhism, this is called the illusion of self, not meaning you don't exist, but that the self you defend is a collection of habits, memories, beliefs, and reactions formed by conditions. You didn't choose most of them. They were shaped by family, by culture, by survival. At some point, those identities helped you cope. They made sense of chaos. They kept you safe. But what once protected you can later imprison you. You stop seeing possibilities because they don't match who you think you are. You reject growth because it threatens the image you've built. The Buddha taught that suffering increases when we confuse identity with truth. You say, "This is who I am," when in reality, it's just who you've been. Identity wants stability. Life wants movement. That conflict creates tension. You feel it when change arrives and your first thought is, "This isn't me," or worse, "I can't do this." But here's the quiet truth. The self you're afraid of losing was never solid to begin with. Think about it. Your values have changed. Your fears have changed. Your dreams have changed. Yet you are still here. What remains isn't a fixed identity. It's awareness. The Buddha described this as non-self, not emptiness, but openness. The freedom of not being trapped by a single version of yourself. When you loosen your grip on identity, life feels lighter. You don't have to defend who you are. You don't have to prove anything. You can be curious instead of certain. Most people don't fear change. They fear losing the story that tells them who they are. But that story is heavy. It tells you what you should want, how you should behave, what failure would mean about you. Letting go of identity doesn't erase you. It reveals you. When you stop asking, "Who am I supposed to be?" you start asking, "What is needed right now?" This shift dissolves ego-driven struggle. You act not to protect an image, but to respond wisely. The Buddha didn't teach non-self to confuse people. He taught it to relieve them, because when there is no rigid self to defend, criticism hurts less. Failure teaches more. Success doesn't inflate you. You're free to adapt. This is why monks shave their heads, wear simple robes, and live without titles. Not as punishment, but as liberation. Less identity, less suffering. You don't need to abandon your personality or values. You just need to stop mistaking them for permanent truth. You are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are not your labels. You are the space in which experience happens. And in that space, something beautiful appears. Compassion. Because when you stop clinging to who you think you are, you stop demanding that others fit your expectations too. You soften. You listen. You allow. And this is where the deepest teaching begins, not in philosophy, but in relationship. How you meet others. How you meet pain. How you meet yourself. Because freedom isn't found by becoming someone new. It's found by releasing what you were never meant to carry. And once that weight drops, one final understanding emerges. A way of living that doesn't depend on control, identity, or fear. A way of living rooted in presence. That is where we go next. There is a place where all this understanding lands. Not in thought, not in effort, but in presence. After all the striving, all the questioning, all the resistance, what remains is this moment. Simple, alive, enough. The Buddha didn't promise a life without pain. He pointed to a way of meeting life without being crushed by it. That way begins and ends here. Presence is not something you achieve. It's something you stop abandoning. Every time the mind runs to the future, presence is left behind. Every time you replay the past, presence waits quietly. It never leaves you. You leave it. When you return, through breath, sensation, awareness, something settles. Not because problems disappear, but because you're no longer carrying them all at once. You carry only now. The present moment is light. It has no memory, no prediction, no burden. It simply is. This is why mindfulness feels like relief. It takes you out of imagined suffering and back into lived reality. You notice the rise and fall of your breath, the weight of your body, the sound of life moving around you, and suddenly the mind softens. Not empty, clear. From this clarity, compassion naturally grows. When you see your own struggle without judgment, you begin to see others the same way. You recognize the restlessness in them, the fear beneath their urgency, the clinging beneath their anger. This is why the Buddha placed compassion at the heart of awakening, not as morality, as understanding. You stop fighting yourself. And when you stop fighting yourself, you stop fighting the world. This doesn't make you passive. It makes you wise. You still set boundaries. You still act. But you act from presence, not fear. From clarity, not compulsion. From alignment, not force. Life begins to feel less like a battle and more like a relationship. You listen, you respond, you adapt, and slowly something profound happens. You trust life again, not because it's predictable, but because you know you can meet it, moment by moment, breath by breath. The Buddha called this liberation, not escape from the world, but freedom within it. You're no longer trapped by urgency, no longer defined by identity, no longer exhausted by resistance. You become flexible, present, grounded. Even when pain arises, it moves through you instead of consuming you. Even when uncertainty appears, it doesn't terrify you. Because you're no longer living in imagined futures or unfinished pasts. You're here, and here is enough. So when life feels heavy, return. When the mind races, return. When fear tightens its grip, return. Not to an idea, not to a belief, but to this moment. this breath, this awareness. Nothing more is required. You were never meant to control life. You were meant to experience it, fully, openly, awake. And that understanding, quiet, steady, unshakable, is what freedom actually feels like.